Hey, everybody, welcome to another episode of Sweeter After Difficulty. This is episode number 3, and we are super excited to have you here. If you have not had a chance to check it out yet, we have episodes 1 and 2 posted up on the Rumble platform. So do yourself a favor, download that app, set the notifications so that every time we put up some new content, you get notified on your phone. Every Friday at noon Pacific, we are releasing new episodes of this. And so today, you know him, you love him. I have the amazing Jordan Lopez and Chris Anderson with me here to have some fun conversations. And as usual, we're going to kick it off with a quote. We've got an amazing topic that we want to talk about today. We're going to dive super deep. So I'm going to kick it over to the quote master general himself, Jordan Lopez, to get us started. Jordan?
All right, Randy. First quote today is from Carl Jung. It is, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate.
Yeah. Such a good quote, probably familiar to a lot of our audience. If you haven't heard this quote before, amazing, super deep Carl Jung, lots of crazy stuff. You can find your way down some pretty deep rabbit holes there. But say that one more time so that we can really sink our teeth into it, would you?
Sure, yeah. So it's, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate.
Yeah, fate. Such a crazy, hard, heavy word, right?
Yeah.
Especially if you grew up watching Terminator 2. So so let's
Yes.
talk let's unpack the whole thing in into chunks, right? So let's start because I'm fascinated by this word unconscious, right? So
hmm
when you hear the word unconscious, what do you think of immediately?
I would say like it's those things in life where you have a natural reaction to something or a natural response to something, and you maybe don't think through why you act the way you do towards certain things, be it like biases towards things or prejudice towards things. I don't really think about why you do what you do, but it's kind of like an inborn, not or maybe not inborn, but something your parents gave you, or a distrust that you have that somebody told you when you were a little kid. You know, like it's kind of not really conscious to you, but you do it unbeknownst to yourself.
Yeah.
Right. So in terms of so kind of what you were describing are is probably what I would classify as like an idea, right?
hmm
Like a building block that other things got set on top of, and you sort of build
hmm
these into your character and into your routines. Um, what about what about things like breathing, or the
Yeah.
does I mean, so because I just think unconscious, you think of like, okay, getting passed out, or or getting
hmm
knocked out, and then your systems go into place and they work without your input,
Yeah.
right? They're
Yeah.
just rolling.
I think probably the perfect example of this is an unconscious thing is self sabotage. I think so many people self sabotage and they don't realize they're doing it, and it's very apparent to people around them. It's like that meme where the person's riding a bike, right, and they stick the stick in the front tire and they flip over and they blame the world. Like that is so applicable to so
How
many
could you
people.
do
I
this
mean,
to me?
yeah, exactly. And I think self sabotage is one of those huge unconscious, conscious kind of a things where it's like people don't realize they do it and they do it all the time.
Uh,
And it's just the world's against them. It's like, well, the world's not against you. Like you're doing this to yourself.
Yeah, I mean, I think like building on that, right? Like the idea that you can learn that things are never your fault, right?
hmm
Like it's no matter what action you take, it's always the result of some external factor. When in reality, it could be the case that you
Mm.
may not have approached it a given way, or tried to differentiate yourself, or opened yourself up to flexibility, or
Yes.
right, like if you've always been taught that when failure happens for any given reason, it's the result of an external factor, that like perfectly describes the meme that you're talking about, right? Like,
Yes.
well, you're doing it to yourself sometimes.
Well, it's internalizing versus externalizing, right? Like I remember with my kids having the conversation with them. Like if you yell out to somebody and they don't answer you, like don't assume they're ignoring you. Assume they didn't hear you. Like, and that's like
Right.
more about externalizing versus internalizing situations. And so many people are like, oh, they ignored me. You walked away from me, blah, blah. It's like, or I didn't hear you. Like, you don't have to make it a negative immediately.
So, in terms of how those things get impressed, you know, some of them, it seems like you are led by example in the case of, you know, you said your parents demonstrate things or certain things like that. I have a really strong memory of when I was a kid. I probably, I don't know, like 4 or 5 years old. And I remember I wasn't feeling good that day. And I went into the kitchen to tell my mom that I wasn't feeling good, and she was baking something. And she was using vanilla, and I had never smelled vanilla before. So, or at least that was my first memory of having smelled the scent vanilla. And as you know, for all you youngsters out there who everything smells like vanilla now, it wasn't like that when I was a kid, right? You had candles, but not everything smelled like vanilla. So I remember walking into the kitchen, I smelled that smell, and I threw up all over the kitchen floor. And up until the point where I was probably a teenager, I associated the smell of vanilla with me throwing up. Now it had nothing to do with it, right? I was already sick that day. I guarantee I had a cold or something. But in my brain, the impression of I wasn't throwing up and then I smelled that smell and I threw up was a powerful enough memory to keep me thinking or having an association right between that particular scent and me getting sick. And so I guess I would classify that as like a trauma instinct, right? Like obviously a very mild version of it. Nothing terrible or long lasting happened to me as a result, right? But I was averse to something that had absolutely zero to do with the outcome that day, and I avoided it. And I don't know, I mean, I can't, you know, like, would my life have been different if I had vanilla from the time I was that age to teenagehood?
Yeah.
You know, probably not. You know, it probably wasn't a major one, but that's a small example, right, of one thing that subconsciously was there. And so on an unconscious level, right, that was firing off. That's kind of why I asked that question, you know. You know, I didn't know, my mom didn't tell me that it wasn't associated, right? She didn't, why would she even think that formed, that idea was in my brain, right? And I was a kid. Just interesting.
Well, it's also too, I think so often in life, we start things as little kids and we go through those difficult phases, like the learning difficult phases as a 4-year-old or a 5-year-old, right? Like riding a bike or playing a sport. And you go through all those struggles as like a 4-year-old and you don't remember it when you're 18 years old, how much you sucked at T-ball when you played T-ball for the first time, right? You just know how good you are now.
Yeah.
And so often, like, people get these things in their head. Like, if you have a bad experience in a pool when you're a little kid, right, you can be traumatized for years. If you fall in a pool and almost drowned and you get pulled out and you're afraid of water for a decade afterward.
Right.
Like, and looking at it from like a jiu-jitsu perspective, like, today I went to a class tonight. Actually, we had a morning class and a night class today. And we had like a first day white belt show up today. And this dude had the deer in the headlights look at his face, and he was just, everything was terrible for him. And it's like, I talked to him afterward. I'm like, dude, yes, this sport's terrible for the next 6 months. I'm like, but you're learning as an adult. Like you're going through these bad experiences as an adult. I'm like, don't get dissuaded because of a bad experience here. Like one day, like if you get smashed by somebody, like show back up, it'll get better. But like, so often in life, we don't have those negative experiences as an adult, starting something completely over new with no background in it. And you may have one bad experience. You're like, oh, it's not the sport for me. And you leave. And it's like, well, when you're a kid, you don't remember all those bad experiences. You just kind of just work through it. But as an adult, we focus and we hyper focus on those bad things and don't want to be defined as that kind of thing.
So we were talking, the quote is, you know, until you make the unconscious conscious.
Mm-hmm.
If we think of let's use the analogy of an idea, right? So an idea that was formed with, in my case, it was the vanilla, right? The scent of vanilla. So how do we take an idea like that's running for years on an unconscious level? How do we take that and turn it into a conscious choice or a conscious action?
I mean, I think a big part of that is like the notion of self-discovery and the fact that it's it's always going to be a journey and not a destination, right? To pull in another quote, but I think you can also look at like the notion of the idea or the notion of the unconscious a little bit differently in the sense that there will be learned behaviors and habits that you pick up as a kid that sit with you. Like for you, just the scent of vanilla. You had no idea what the scent was, but that's the thing that would trigger you. Growing up for me, it was conflict is always a bad thing, bar none, no matter what. And I never would have realized it, but the notion of disagreement or anything related to like, hey, this isn't correct, whether it's a math problem or, running the wrong play in a football game or a peewee baseball game or whatever the case may be, right? And until you start unpacking like, hey, why is it a bad thing in every case, bar none, that conflict is bad? Like somebody had asked me that in the course of jiu-jitsu. It's like, hey man, you're not really fighting back. Like we are in conflict for sport for 5 minutes at a time, and you're not fighting back. Like this isn't a puzzle. Like fight back. And I was like, oh man, I don't know. I like conflict just doesn't feel good. And it's like, there it is. Like that was unconscious. Like I was a default position, and all the way up through adulthood, where it's like conflict averse. Do not engage. And until I had named it, like made that known, like, man, why is this so uncomfortable? I was never able to begin addressing it. And so it's this notion of like, how do you learn more about yourself? Like it's the unknown unknowns, I think, which makes it so challenging, because you're like, you can just be in a state of permanent self-discovery because you never know everything you don't know about yourself.
Well, there's worse things, right? Like you could be in a, get yourself into a pattern of permanent self-delusion or, or whatever. I mean, we've seen plenty of examples of that as well.
Living online.
I think you made a great point, actually, about, I mean, we've talked a little bit in some of the previous episodes about, personal honesty and about testing ourselves, about courage and about pain and even stillness, in the previous episode. Like I said, if for everybody listening out there, if you haven't had a chance, go check those out. There's some good stuff in there that really is helping to build the foundation of how these conversations are going. I think that I think personal honesty is one that might even be a little bit of a challenge for some people to hear, because if you asked anyone, right, or most anyone, hey, are you honest with yourself? Like everybody's gonna go, yeah, of course, of course I'm honest with myself. But again, and I know we've said it before, only we can know if that's true or not, when we say it. But it is interesting how often you'll hear somebody say yes in response to that question, and then they do some action that seems to be completely contrary to, what they just said. And you go, so are you aware that that's how that comes across then? And it's almost like either their mind is blown or they just can't, like you're speaking a different language, right?
Or they're deluded.
It's too far down. I think there was a great Mark Twain quote that said, it's easier to convince someone that they've been lied to. No, it's easier to convince somebody that a lie is true than to convince somebody that they've been lied to. Right? Because once you grab onto this idea, now if we start talking about building blocks, right? There was an analogy before, but if we think of that as what we use to build the foundation of our character going forward, as much as we're able to contribute to it, If you have an idea in the foundation down there that ends up being contrary or in the face of like what how you carry yourself later in life, like owning that part might be embarrassing, or it might be, it might be, ugly. But it's so important to be honest about it, right?
Yeah.
Because if you're not going to be able to properly address it. It's like going to the doctor with a broken arm and telling the doctor that your ankle hurts.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to send you away like your ankle's fine, right? And then you didn't fix the problem, right? It's probably worse now.
Right.
So I love where this is going. So I would like to take it now one step further down the staircase, right, into how do we start being honest with ourselves?
Mm-hmm. I think it comes with, I don't know, with maybe not trauma, but like events that cause you to peel back those situations. Like I think that so many people have like self-imposed limitations, right? If people set these things in their life, I'm not a runner, or I'm not active, or I'm not an athlete like you, or these things are like, people will say these certain things. It's like, but that's you talking. That's not what reality is. Like, that's a societal or a social norm you kind of put yourself in. Or I'm just big boned. I'm not fat, or whatever it is. It's like, it's like, well, like, it's just people like to limit themselves and like to define what they are and who they are.
Yeah.
And you can find so many people in life who've kind of broken out of that self-definition and have done incredible things. And
yeah, and I think that's where I want to see this go, but I don't want to skip to the end of the line, because I think it's the process and the steps to get there that we might be missing. And I'd like to go a little bit further down. How do we start to unpack those ideas? How do we start to open up, ourselves into a place where we're being honest all the time? And so that's kind of what I'm just curious what your opinions are on. Because immediately I started thinking about episode 2, right, that we just released last week.
Yeah.
And we're talking about testing ourselves, right? So how do you figure out if something is true or not? You hold it up to the light, right, and you test it. What does that process look like to your brain, right? I know what it looks like to mine, but I'm curious. How do you prioritize which ideas to break down? How do you decide when to unpack something? Are you willing to find out that you were lied to and adjust your way of thinking, or are you going to stick your feet in the concrete and not move forward on the idea that you were given, no matter how flat you find out the earth actually is? Jordan?
Well, I
welcome to
think
your first test of the episode, Jordan.
Yeah. Let me pull my tinfoil hat out. Hang on a second.
Yeah.
That's so good.
No, I think a lot of these situations like that people, like, for me, so the biggest one that I kind of see is like it often comes to like racism and stuff like that. Like, and so you see these kids who are like raised. I remember having like a discussion with my wife, being like, if I wanted Barrett to be racist, he would be racist. Because he wants to be just like me. He wants to do all the things, especially when he was like 4 or 5 years old. Like, it'd be very easy to implant these little seeds in his head about specific people or specific skin colors, and they act this way or they do these things. And you could be very simple to kind of start doing this. And it's like, and so you start seeing these people who maybe have this perspective that's been given to them for a very long time, and then they become an adult and they have a not expected interaction with somebody, and they kind of throws their whole world out of whack, especially being in the deep South that we are here. Like, there's a history of issues within racism here in the South, right? In Georgia and like the South, the Carolinas, and all these kinds of the history of the Civil War.
Yeah.
And so you kind of have this weird little background kind of thing that people don't want to really talk about. but it has to come to a head maybe one day where you kind of, the situation that you've always been told ends up not being the truth, and it kind of causes you to either come to a crossroads and be like, okay, well, I either continue to believe what I was always told or see reality on reality's terms and maybe be forced to change my perspective.
Yeah. And in that case, then just the idea of how you would approach it comes through being in a situation where you have to address it, right? Because your kid's going to have questions, that are natural human questions. I grew up with an incredibly racist grandfather. I didn't even realize what the racism, that it was so like ingrained because he spoke it so naturally, right? It was, I didn't even recognize it as as him having, harsh feelings towards someone else because he said it like he would have said anything else. It was so natural. And so I never had that. Like I never had those feelings about other people, but it was a little bit confusing, when you were a kid to hear someone that you love or respect saying those kind of things that, like, okay, that doesn't sound right. Yeah, that's another form of trauma too, I think, What about the idea of contrary information, or finding out that something that you were told just isn't true, right? When you find out, and people have probably heard this saying before, but once someone who tells a lie is a liar, right? Like you can't trust anything after that point, right? Like it's the one lie that does it, right? Like that establishes your people's inability to trust what you have to say. And I think that's why it's also so important that we're careful, in what we embrace and the ideas that we choose to incorporate, especially once we get past the point where we are being personally honest with ourselves and where we have a choice on what, things go into our life and what things get real estate and those kind of things. But what do you think the process is for reevaluating, or is it a motivating factor, the revelation that information that you were firmly stood on, is provably untrue at this point? What does that do for that information, everything that's attached to that, and everything that's attached to the person who gave you that information?
I think there's a lot behind that for each of us within a personal experience, and we could easily pull up tons of stories. I think if I try to reflect back, it's this idea that it can never be a flashpoint. Like if you've been led to believe a certain thing, it's going to be incredibly difficult to confront whatever that belief is in a single moment with a single piece of contrary information, and then use that single piece of contrary information to challenge your entire system of beliefs. And like we've all three of us talked about this in the past. I talk about it with my kids all the time. We have to be comfortable doing hard things. And those hard things exist on a spectrum in physical, emotional, mental. When you're confronted with something that challenges your belief, I firmly think that you have to walk into that situation knowing you could be wrong about what you believe in. And if you want to still continue to believe the thing that you're believing, you should be comfortable in the face of contrary information until that contrary information is so overwhelming that you have enough to actually confront that belief in a really robust way. Because it's one thing to say, I've always believed in, that the color yellow is this, looks like this. And then somebody walks up to you with a color like this, and they says, no, this is yellow. Well, in that single point in time, you're like, whatever.
Right.
You're a crazy person. But I still believe that yellow is yellow, so let's keep talking about it. Like, more than happy to admit that I'm wrong if you can continue to prove this to me. And if there's such overwhelming data that we both trust, then okay, now I have to challenge my belief system. But that's so hard to do. Like, you have to get comfortable doing hard things in order to be open to the idea that what you
Mhm.
believe in could be flawed in some way.
Yeah. And I think that it's such a great point. Um, so I guess, everybody has that scale for themselves, right? On how compelling the information is, or the source they got it from, whether they trust it, or, all those things you're right. There's a lot there. Um, I wonder, I wonder how much responsibility we have, right? Because I think of something like in terms of that, and so I have a little bit different perspective on that, right? I'm calling something yellow, and I'm telling other people when it comes up, which this one doesn't come up a lot in my daily life, but on occasion, when someone wants to know what my impression of the color yellow is, I could hold it up for them. But if somebody was believed strongly enough, right, that it wasn't yellow, because they were just raised from childhood that green was yellow, or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
I think the thing that my mind does, and it's why I'm so interested in your perspective, is my mind goes, well, at some point you're going to pass that information along to other people, right? As innocuous as it might seem, the difference between yellow and green, whatever, but then for me, I think that means that I have a responsibility to be right, or don't say anything, right? Either know that, like, I was raised in a complete opposite environment from you, Chris. Everything was confrontation, constant confrontation. And so for me, I was always raised, yes, be confrontational, but don't argue unless you're right. Right? So
wow.
I would never argue a point unless I was convinced in my soul that I was right. Right?
Interesting.
So that makes it a little, like, does that add kind of a layer to how difficult it can be to kind of rip yourself away from these? You build a paradigm,
100%.
a wall of safety, right? Behind that, behind that thing.
But like now I'm going back to Jordan's quote at the very beginning. Like, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and call it fate. So for me, in the sense that, like, until I actually knew that I could not do confrontation, I would always assume that I was incorrect because fate made me wrong.
Yeah.
Where, like, conversely, you may approach a similar situation and be like, I can never win an argument unless I'm darn sure that I'm right.
Right.
Which means that I can never be wrong when I enter in an argument.
Right.
Like, any argument I get into, I know provably I'm going to be right no matter what in the face of any evidence ever.
Or you won't hear me arguing.
Right.
Right? I just won't have an opinion about it. I won't say, this is my opinion, or... And that's evolved like lately. I'm saying is this is what I think, but I'm still in the process of figuring,
But like, what a
position.
fantastic lived example from both ends of that spectrum for until you make the unconscious conscious.
Yeah.
You're sitting there going, well, that's just the way that it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, and also too, it's so healthy nowadays to be like, I don't have an opinion on that. Like, I don't know, and I'm open to what you have to say in the conversation, but. Like, we all don't have to have opinions on everything. Like, cement black and white opinions. There's too much stuff in the world to shoot aside on all things at all times.
Like, we talked about this, I think the last episode, or perhaps even in the Courage episode, like, because it's so easy to access opinions through the internet, everybody wants their opinion to be right. And so there's this, like, cultural push to be like, well, my opinion is better than your opinion. And there's this, no longer people are sitting there going like, I just don't know. Like, I'm ready to accept what may come if we continue having a conversation. But, like, the value of not knowing has just disappeared. And it's okay to not know something. Like, that's valuable to admit, especially when we're talking about being honest with yourself.
Well, because
the fear might come from learning. It might come from like, I think you doing jiu-jitsu for as long as we have, you have to have that mindset, because you are going in there not knowing what's going on and not knowing what's being taught and learning new things all the time. That's why I love the sport so much. I'm learning new things all the time. Like, And I have to admit, like, I don't know what they're doing. I've never seen this move before. Like, I've been in for 9 years. I've never seen a move before. It's like, there's no shame in not knowing what you're talking about because I'm here to learn.
Right.
Like, and so people move past that point that they become a topic expert or an expert in their field, and they feel like they can't ever not know an answer to something. It's like, if I don't know,
Well,
I'm
and, like,
going to tell you.
what if there is no stronger way to devalue expertise than to never say I don't know.
Mhm.
Like, if, in other words, said differently, if everybody's got an opinion on everything, then experts become irrelevant.
Mhm.
Because then you're no longer in pursuit of further information. You're no longer coming to any sort of situation or event humbly. You're just, oh, well, I've got 15 opinions preloaded on this ready to go. I don't need an expert. And you're like, or you could just say, I don't know. And I'm going to go seek out information, or I'm going to go talk to an expert, or I'm going to begin to do the process of formulating an understanding about a jiu-jitsu concept or parenting methodology or right, like something at work. Like, it could be anything.
Well, yeah, not just that, but even more deep interest or more deep point is you could teach somebody something like tonight. Perfect example. Tonight, the guy who was teaching the class is a second-degree black belt. He's 320 pounds. So a 320-pound second-degree black belt is different than a 120-pound girl. And so you're teaching big boy jiu-jitsu to a girl who's 200 pounds lighter than you. She can't do what you're doing. You know what I mean? Like, you have to start to tailor the message to the audience and to make it more applicable to the person who's trying to learn the move versus just do it the way I do it. It's like, well, that doesn't, like, it's not specific
universal
enough. It's not universal, exactly. And I talk about that all the time in my classes. It's like, everybody's body type is different. There's no one way to do a specific move because not everybody is my size or is your size or is Randy's size. And so if you start saying, like, this is the way to do it, you're going to start losing people because everybody's body type is different, everybody's experience is different, everybody's athletic ability is different or cognitive ability, and you can't just have the way because there's too many people.
Yeah, discernment plays such a huge part of that for me too. Being able to kind of weed out the bullshit quickly, or at least as quickly as possible. And then lately it just feels like it's like every time I move a spoonful of it out of the way, then someone dumps like a dump truck full. Oh, I'm never gonna get through all this.
It's the Hydra. You cut off
you can't just cut the head off. What's your problem? Yeah, that's a crazy one. So let's go down Fate Road. Obviously, Fate is a personal idea or a personal concept too. I kind of made a Terminator 2 joke at the beginning, but that's a big theme, right? Through the whole idea of, Skynet and AI and humans having the ability to either affect the outcomes or being bound on a path that is headed in one direction without it mattering what your input is. And in that instance, we just end up in a place where we kind of have to just try to find peace with it, right? How much do you think that concept and the fear associated with the unknown are married to each other? Or are they?
What's another way you can ask that question? I'm kind of stuck on what you were saying.
Yeah, I guess I'm trying to walk down the road of, okay, if we know how to unpack ideas to start to bring ourselves to a place where we're more personally honest with ourselves, right? Mm-hmm. A lot of times we don't want to open those old boxes because we're afraid of what we're going to find in there. Right. And so we just leave them buried at the bottom and just kind of go, and then eventually at some point, you know, you get old enough that your foundation starts to rot away, you know, and then these things, I have this like really interesting experience with, you know, taking care of the elderly, especially like the ones that have had, you know, or going through things like dementia or Alzheimer's. And I wrote down a note one time, and it was basically the person that we present to everyone is a mask that we designed when we were little. It is the face that we put forward. But at some point, when you get dementia or Alzheimer's, you forget to put your mask on. And all of a sudden, you're a completely different person than you've ever been in your whole life. And I've seen that switch kind of flip for people, you know, at some point, right? They're like this way, this way, this way. And then the disease gets bad enough that they go, and one day they're just someone else, right? And what you're seeing then, I think, is more of their authentic self, right? They forgot how to use a fork. They forgot how to act this way in front of you, which is something they've been practicing their whole life, and they forgot how to do it, right? Yeah. So now you're just left to face, and in their case, right, it's not that, because they can't process and remember that from minute to minute. But if you open a box and learn something about yourself at any point in your life that you don't like, and you believe that you have no choice to fix that, how does that affect your ability to even, or your desire to want to be honest with yourself?
Yeah. I think, and another way you can kind of put it too, and I know we've all experienced this, is when you roll with somebody who is a certain type of personality, and then you push them a little bit, and a different personality type starts coming out.
Yeah.
And you see that a lot. And it's a very jiu-jitsu specific experience, but somebody will put on a certain guise, and then you roll with them and you start to put them in bad situations, and then a different person kind of comes out, and you're like, oh, you're hiding something. I see. It's
right.
It can go either way too. Because like I think if I'm taking your meaning, like sometimes you're talking about you put somebody in a bad situation and then they turn into a person that has negative reactions and get angry. Whereas, like, you know, going back a little bit earlier, the episode when I spoke about conflict and how conflict averse I was raised to be, and the only way that began to be addressed was through the sport of jiu-jitsu and rolling with guys like you two who are absolute monsters. And it's like, oh, I kind of like this. And I'm objectively, I'm like, you're tapping me out, each of you, multiple times around, right? And you're putting me in those bad positions, but I'm sitting there going like, okay, but what if one day I could have that power?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it's like, oh, wait, I never would have thought that I would have enjoyed this, and it would have only been borne out through conflict.
Yeah.
So
when you expose somebody like on the mat, like there is that decision. Like, are you going to come back? Are you going to kind of figure this thing out, or are you going to let this little piece of you hide away somewhere? Yeah.
It is a crucible, absolutely. And that was what I was going to ask you, Chris, specifically is, so as an adult, having done jiu-jitsu now, compare it to, you know, whatever, 5 years ago or before you started, right? And then, so at that point in time, were you still someone who was completely in the habit of just being
100%,
you know, no confrontation, right?
And I've got a great story about this because, you know, it's with one of your boys, Randy, and for the audience who doesn't know the sport of jiu-jitsu and who doesn't know Randy's boys, they're truly two of the most honorable, high-character young men I've ever met, and I think of them both extremely highly. They are also fantastically athletic and very talented as grapplers, and I am deeply intimidated by both of them, so please edit that out of the episode.
No way, they're looking for this.
So, I was rolling with Anakin, and
my youngest.
Yes, Randy's youngest, who is like 6'1", 230, you know, 1%, just like Atticus, the older brother.
Cardio never
1%
quit.
athletic. Right.
Yeah.
But also both of the boys, the biggest hearts of all time.
Mm-hmm.
Right? They will beat you down and build you back up. And that's what makes this sport special. So I, as a 40-year-old man, am rolling with, you know, I forget how old Anakin is at this point.
22.
Right? He's like early 20s.
Yeah.
And he always ragdolls me. Like, just, it's an abuse, right? You walk out of those school doors, it's abuse. And I love it. I love the scrap, because before each round that I ever have with Anakin, and it's turned into a bit now, before each round, I habitually, without talking, I'm like, all right, Anakin, I'm here for my butt kicking. And one day he just looked at me and he goes, what are you talking about? Like, he got the most serious I have ever seen Anakin get. And he goes, you have never once given yourself any credit for how good you are at this.
Oh.
Yeah.
And I was like, stunned. I couldn't start the round on time.
Who raised that kid?
I mean, I'm sitting there for 30 seconds. And I'm like, man, I got kind of like a little emotional about it.
Yeah.
Because I have spent 3+ decades being too afraid of conflict.
Yeah.
And I look at your boys, high character, big heart, great athletes. Like, I admire them both, which is a great reflection on you as a dad. But
Thank you.
like, I look at those rounds and I'm like, God, this is going to be a brutal one.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And they go, dude, it's brutal for me too. Like, give yourself some credit. And I'm like, okay, I have a seat at this table. So you asked me, like, would I ever have had the ability to, like, gain a little bit of confidence and have your kids hold up that mirror for me 5 years ago? No, I would have walked away. Right? But that's what this sport does. It brings out relationships, and it brings out your ability to understand yourself in a new way.
Yeah.
And I think that's what's so special about it, you know? It brings the unconscious to the front.
Yeah, and you get that peer feedback, right? People who you respect, people who you train with. Like, I remember, like, Jimmy giving a comment like that to Charles when I was there. I've heard that comment to him, and I've gotten a very similar comment from Jimmy. And it was like, you could see Charles's face change from what he said. And it was for the audience who wasn't there, Charles and Jimmy had a couple gnarly rounds. Jimmy just wailed on him.
Knock down, drag out.
Yeah, and then when he got up, Jimmy's like, bro, you're a soldier. And if anybody in this room ducks you, tell me. And I will fix them in that moment. It's just like, and Charles's face was like stunned. And it's like, bro, the three of us have gotten a very similar comment from Jimmy. Yeah. And I remember when he was talking about JT and I, and he was talking to somebody in the morning class. I'm like, oh yeah, the morning crew, blah blah. And Jimmy's like, bro, I got some dogs in the night class, and I'll put them up against anybody. And he's talking about JT and I. It's just like, I remember when he told me that and told JT that. It's just like, okay, well now I have a new obligation in life. Like, it's to live up to that obligation. And but it took him saying that out loud to whomever.
You know, like, maybe that's the insight for the episode. Right, like we started off with this idea of until you make the unconscious conscious, you'll direct your life and you'll call it fate. Maybe it's you need to build and find and then build the relationships with the people who will help bring that stuff to bear and help you address it and work through it. Because, like, other people are going to see you in a different way than you will. And with the right group around you, they can bring that out and help you grow.
So, perfect segue. Let's wrap this up. Let's put a bow on it, right? A little bit more introspective again. One last question. Thinking back to your pre-jiu-jitsu self, being aware now that you are capable of doing something very simple that can profoundly change your entire view of everything, right? Of everything. Did that knowledge, or does that knowledge, change how you feel about fate and your ability to interact with where you end up?
1000%. Fate is the convenient excuse I would use to allow me to back away from discomfort.
Yeah.
And I wish I would have been able to tell myself that 5-6 years ago, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like people who say, "Oh, I'm a victim of my circumstance." Like, so often it's like, well, there's 1,000 choices that happened between then and now that led you to this circumstance, and it's a very passive, overt, or very passive thing to just to hang your hat on, versus being active in your own life and active in your decisions and choices and who you hang out with and stuff like that.
I prefer to think of myself as a victor of my circumstances.
There you go. Put that in the quote book.
Yeah, write that down. Somebody quote me on their podcast, why don't you? No, that's awesome. Well, I mean, you guys, as always, amazing conversation. I'm so grateful for your perspectives. You know, and I really truly feel like I'm learning and growing, and having your sides of it and your versions of it really helps to open that up. So I'm super grateful to both of you guys. And for everybody out there, thank you for sticking with us. Thank you for helping us grow this thing. Again, we're just getting started, but we are super excited to have you here. And as always, check it out Fridays at noon. Go download the Rumble app, like, subscribe, share this out if you would. We'd appreciate it. And let us know how we can improve the show. We're just, like I said, we're just getting started, and we're so excited to see this thing grow and build and be added to the community that we already are blessed to be part of. So until next Friday at noon, thanks everybody. Chris, Jordan, appreciate you guys.
Thanks, man.
Cheers. See you guys.